Ahoy there, listeners, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at a career path that's, well, making waves. We're diving into the world of shipwrights.
You might be thinking big wooden ships, those old school tools, maybe a salty sea dog here and there.
And hey, you're not wrong, but get ready for some surprises because this deep dive is going to show you exactly how relevant this age-old craft really is today.
It's true. It's true. And we're diving deep into excerpts from RoleCatcher's career guides, their resources, and trust me, they have some really fascinating insights into what modern shipbuilding really looks like.
All right, so let's get into it. What does a shipwright actually do? Because it's got to be more than carving figureheads, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our source material from RoleCatcher really does get into the nitty-gritty here. Building, repairing, we're talking vessels of all sizes, from those really sleek sailboats all the way to the massive cargo ships. That's really the core of what a shipwright does.
Okay, so that much I kind of figured. But what about the actual work? Like, is it all, brute strength? Are we talking calloused hands? What's the deal?
Well, and this is where I think it gets really, really interesting. The guide that we're looking at emphasizes that modern-day shipwrighting is really this dynamic blend of, that traditional craftsmanship, but combined with cutting-edge technology. So we're talking hand-hewn timbers right alongside computer-aided design.
Wait, hold on. CAD software in shipwrighting, that's not what I was picturing.
I know it's true. Imagine, though, you're able to design a complex hull curve. You're doing it with pinpoint accuracy on a computer, or you're running simulations to test how a ship moves through water, it's hydrodynamics, before you even cut the first piece of steel. That's the power of CAD.
Okay, that is seriously cool. So not only do you have to be, skilled with your hands, but you've got to be tech savvy too?
Exactly. Adaptability is key here. Right?
Yeah.
Technology is constantly evolving. And so it's no longer enough to just be strong. You have to be a problem solver. You got to be a critical thinker. And yeah, you got to be comfortable with tech. That's the name of the game.
So not your grandpa's shipbuilding anymore. I mean, for someone considering this, why should this matter to them?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And I got to say, RoleCatcher's guides, they don't shy away from this at all. In fact, they actually highlight that this is a growing job market, believe it or not.
With everything going on, in the economy and all that, that's kind of surprising.
I know. But you'd be surprised by how many different factors are at play here. For one thing, there's this real resurgence, right? In handcrafted boats, unique designs, people are really rediscovering that beauty, that personal touch of something that's built with real skill and care.
So, like, craftsmanship is making a comeback.
It really is.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's this constant need for repair, for maintenance, right? Ships, no matter how, technologically advanced they get, they still need upkeep. And that ensures a steady, consistent demand for those skilled shipwrights.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I feel like there's got to be more to it than just, repairs in these bespoke boats. What about the future? What about the future of shipbuilding? Where does that fit in?
You're on the right track. There's a whole other layer to this. We've got to talk about the environmental angle.
Okay, now you've got me. Environment. How do shipwrights play into that?
Well, the industry as a whole is making these massive strides towards sustainability, right? And shipwrights, they are on the front lines of making this transformation happen. We're talking lighter materials, more fuel-efficient hull designs, even things like alternative energy sources.
Wow, that's incredible. So they're not just building ships, they're building a greener future for the entire industry.
Exactly. And for somebody out there who's passionate about sustainability, I mean, this is it. This is an incredible opportunity to have a real impact.
I gotta say, I'm hooked, and we're just getting started.
Oh, we're just scratching the surface here. Now, let's talk about how you actually break into this field. What does the career path look like for a budding shipwright?
Yeah.
Because RoleCatcher, they provide some excellent insights into that.
Okay, let's unpack that. What's like step one?
Well, it often starts with, the good old-fashioned apprenticeship. It's the classic model, right? You learn the trade from those experienced mentors, and you're really mastering those skills hands-on.
Right, learning from the masters.
Exactly. And it's not just watching. You're not fetching coffee. You're actively involved in building and repairing from day one. I mean, it's truly the best way to learn the ins and outs of this craft.
So you're saying real-world experience trumps everything in this field?
Absolutely.
Right.
But it's not just about apprenticeships. I mean, RoleCatcher also recommends seeking out internships, getting your foot in the door at shipyards, boat builders. Yeah. Gain that experience, make those connections. It's all valuable.
So networking, Networking is key.
Networking is key in any field, but especially in something like this, it's so specialized.
Mm.
Building those relationships, with shipwrights who've been doing it for years, that can open doors you wouldn't believe.
So it's who you know as much as what you know.
You got to have both. It's a combination, right? It's proven skills, a killer work ethic, and a genuine passion for this. That's what's going to make you stand out.
It sounds challenging, but also really really rewarding. But let's face it, even the most passionate, aspiring shipwright, they might feel overwhelmed. Like, where do I even begin?
And I get that. That's where these resources from RoleCatcher are just amazing. They offer a roadmap, a literal roadmap for navigating this whole thing. They break it down into these really manageable steps. It's great.
So they don't just tell you what to do. They actually show you how to do it.
Exactly. They give you step-by-step guidance. They have practical tips,
Oh.
even sample interview questions to help you prepare.
Speaking of interview questions, what are some of the things that, somebody who wants to be a shipwright should be ready to answer?
That's a great question. I actually pulled a couple of examples from RoleCatcher, and I think they're quite insightful. One common one they mention is, can you explain the process you use to construct a ship's hull?
Okay, so getting right into the nitty-gritty, the heart of it, how should someone even approach that kind of question?
Well, it's all about showcasing your knowledge, right,
Mm.
and your passion. You want to talk about your experience with different hull materials, whether it's wood, fiberglass, steel, and then walk them through the process, from the design plans to shaping the frames, planking or plating the hull and making sure it's watertight.
So not just textbook, but you really understand it.
Exactly. Another one they mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, was what experience do you have with ship repair and maintenance?
Okay, that one seems a little more, I don't know, straightforward.
It does, but it's your chance to highlight those practical skills, even if you're just starting out.
So even if it's volunteer work or, stuff you've done on your own.
Exactly. Demonstrate you can troubleshoot, that you've worked with your hands, that you can apply that knowledge in real situations.
It sounds like they're looking for people who are passionate, and eager to learn.
100%. And then another question they highlighted, and I thought this was crucial, was how do you ensure that all the work that you do is completed to a high standard, but also that it meets safety regulations?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? It's not just about building something beautiful. It's about building it to last and making sure everybody's safe.
Absolutely. And this is your chance to emphasize your commitment to quality, your attention to detail. You understand safety protocols are non-negotiable.
Showing that you're responsible.
Exactly. And that's huge in this world. I mean, we're talking about building ships,
Yeah.
right? So precision and attention to detail, that can be the difference between a successful voyage and disaster.
No pressure.
Right. But these are great insights. It's not all about the interview, though. What about landing these coveted shipwright jobs?
Let's talk about that. I'm all ears. How do you actually get the job?
Well, RoleCatcher has some really practical advice on that front, too. One thing they emphasize is creating a portfolio that showcases your skills.
Oh, so it's not just about having a resume. It's about showing what you can do.
Exactly. Think photos, think videos, detailed descriptions of projects you've worked on, even testimonials.
It's like a visual representation of your passion.
You got it. You're going that extra mile to show them you're serious. This isn't just a job. This is what you love to do.
Yeah, a well-crafted portfolio can really make a difference.
Absolutely. It sets you apart. It makes you memorable. It shows you're invested.
You're not just looking for a job. You're looking to build something, a career in what you're truly passionate about.
Exactly. And that passion, that's contagious. It shows in your work, in your interviews, and ultimately in your success.
I love it. Okay, this is all incredibly fascinating, but gotta ask, are there downsides? It can't all be smooth sailing, right?
Of course. Like any career path, there are challenges, there are considerations. Do we want to delve into those a little bit?
Let's get real. What are some of the potential downsides of being a shipwright?
Well, for starters, it is physically demanding. It's long hours, sometimes in some pretty challenging weather conditions. That's just part of the job.
Okay, so not for those who like to work in their pajamas.
Probably not the best fit. You
Yeah.
got to have stamina, you got to be resilient, and you got to be okay with getting your hands a little dirty.
Literally.
Literally, yes.
Yeah.
But it's not just physical, right? It's an industry that never sits still. It's always changing, which means you're a lifelong learner. New technologies, new techniques. You're constantly adapting.
So no resting on your laurels.
Not in this field.
Yeah.
You have to be adaptable, embrace the new stuff, and always be willing to learn new skills.
challenging, but also, a huge opportunity to grow. It's not stagnant.
Exactly. That's what makes it so rewarding. You're always learning, always pushing those boundaries.
This is really giving me a whole new appreciation for this craft and the people who do this. It's amazing.
It really is. It's a career that deserves so much respect.
Totally, totally. But let's shift gears just a little bit, talk about something a little more, tangible. What about the money? What's the earning potential?
That's fair.
Yeah.
And thankfully, RoleCatcher gives us some insights on that, too. They actually cite a median salary for shipwrights that's quite competitive.
Oh, so it's not just a labor of love. You can actually make a living.
You can. Of course, it can vary based on experience, location, if you specialize in something.
Right. Like, I'm guessing a shipwright in, a big city shipyard probably earns more than someone in a small coastal town.
Exactly. And those with very specific skill sets, working with specialized materials or those high-tech things, they're in high demand.
So there's room for, you can move up, specialize.
Absolutely. Just like we were talking about before, it's a career with real growth potential, both for you as a person and professionally. It's all there.
I love that. This is great. But I am curious about the actual career progression. We talked about apprenticeships, but what happens after that?
So once you've really honed those skills, you've put in the work, gained that experience as an apprentice, you typically move into a junior shipwright role.
So you're moving up in the world.
You got it.
Yeah.
And with that comes more independence, more responsibility.
What kinds of things? What does a junior shipwright do?
Think of it as that stepping stone, right? You'll be involved in more complex projects. You're working more independently, maybe even supervising a small team of apprentices yourself.
Oh, wow. So not just building ships, but leading, mentoring.
You got it. It's this really crucial stage where you're not only getting even better at what you do, but you're also developing those leadership skills. It's a win-win.
That's amazing. And I bet that sense of accomplishment, seeing something through from start to finish, knowing you played a part in that.
Oh, absolutely. And then as you continue to grow, you amass all this experience, you can then progress to the big leagues, the senior shipwright.
Now we're talking. What does it take to reach that level?
A senior shipwright, they are at the top of their game. They're not just building anymore. They are overseeing entire construction projects, managing teams of those junior shipwrights and apprentices. They are making sure everything's running smoothly, everything is up to standard. You might even be involved in the very beginning stages, the design, collaborating with the architects and engineers.
Wow, that's a whole different ballgame. It's not just hands-on. It's, leadership, management, understanding the entire process.
100%. You become a mentor, a leader, a guardian of this craft. You're making sure that shipbuilding, continues to thrive, but you're also embracing progress. It's a balance.
I love it. It's amazing how this one career path has so much room to grow.
It really does. And for those people who are just drawn to this world, the artistry of it, the engineering, the sheer size of it all, it can be such a rewarding and fulfilling path, your whole life.
I can see why people love it, but let's be real. I mean, even with all of this, opportunity for growth, there's got to be challenges at every level. What are some of the hurdles you might encounter?
You're absolutely right. Every stage has its learning curves. As an apprentice, it's all about patience, perseverance, and honestly, not being afraid to mess up sometimes.
You're going to make mistakes.
You will. You're learning. You're refining your skills. It takes time.
Yeah.
But you got to be dedicated. It's important.
So those oops moments, those are all just opportunities to learn.
Exactly. Every mistake is a lesson learned. Then you move on to that junior shipwright level. The challenges change. Now you have more responsibility. You might be supervising people for the first time. Maybe you're not used to that. It's about finding your feet as a leader, earning the respect of your team, and managing expectations, theirs and yours. It's a lot.
It's that switch, right? You go from taking direction to giving direction, and that's not always easy.
Absolutely. And it's a process. And then, of course, senior shipwrights,
Yeah.
even more complex. You're responsible for these huge projects, the budgets, deadlines,
Yeah.
making sure your team is safe, on top of everything else. It can be a lot of pressure. You need strong leadership, excellent communication, and you got to make tough calls sometimes.
Sounds like it keeps you on your toes.
It does. But I think that's also part of the appeal, not for everybody, but for those who thrive in that kind of environment. It's more than just a job. It's a real passion.
Yeah, I get that. And we're talking about building ships. I mean, these aren't just, any structures. They have to withstand some of the harshest conditions out there. Are there any, like, specific challenges just in the work itself that aspiring shipwrights should be prepared for?
Oh, absolutely. Building a ship, it's such an intricate, demanding process. I mean, there are always challenges. One of the biggest ones is simply the scale of it all.
This is not building a bookshelf.
Not at all. You're working with these massive, massive pieces of steel, intricate piping systems, electrical components. It's a puzzle, but a huge, complicated one.
And then there's the whole working with different materials thing. I mean, they all have their own, quirks, challenges.
Exactly. You might go from working with, traditional wood to high-strength steel to those really advanced composites like fiberglass or carbon fiber. And you need different skills, a different understanding for each one.
Sounds like you got to be a jack of all trades. Whatever comes your way, you can handle it.
That's a great way to put it. And then, of course, there's always the challenge of working with those really tight tolerances and specifications. Ships, they have to be built to incredibly precise measurements. We're talking millimeters here. It has to be spot on.
No room for good enough when you're building a ship.
Not really.
Hmm.
This is a profession where precision, attention to detail, and really striving for excellence in everything you do. It's key. It's everything.
It really makes you think about just how much skill, how much dedication it takes to build these things.
It's amazing, isn't it? And let's not forget, on top of all that, you got to stay up to date. The technologies, the innovations in shipbuilding, it never stops.
Right. We were talking about that earlier, how tech is changing the game.
It really is. We're talking about advanced design software, automated systems, even 3D printing. It's amazing how much it's evolved, and it keeps changing.
So you can't just, learn something 20 years ago and coast on that.
Nope, you got to be ready to adapt, always be learning. It's a field that really rewards curiosity. And that actually brings us to another really important aspect. Problem solving.
Right. I mean, when you're building something this complex, I'm sure things don't always go according to plan.
Oh, you're telling me. And that's where that problem solving comes in. A shipwright needs to be able to think on their feet, troubleshoot when something goes wrong, and come up with a solution fast.
So it's not just about, following instructions. It's about being able to improvise.
You got it. A good shipwright, they're like master problem solvers. They can look at a problem, think critically, and find that creative solution.
That's amazing. Okay, we've talked about the skills, the challenges, all of that, but what about the people? Who actually thrives in this kind of work environment?
That's such a good question. I think a few things really stand out. First and foremost, you got to be passionate about it.
Like, this isn't just a job, it's in your blood.
Yeah, exactly. You have that drive, you want to build things, create something that's going to last.
Yeah.
And with that passion comes dedication.
Right. You got to put in the work.
Yes.
Yep.
Building a ship is no joke. It takes time, patience, a meticulous eye for detail. It's not for everybody.
And it's not a solo mission either, right?
No way. It's
Yeah.
all about teamwork. A good shipwright can work with anyone, other craftspeople, the engineers, the designers, everyone.
No room for big egos.
Nope. Communication, collaboration, respecting each other's skills, it's all so important. And of course, that strong work ethic, like we talked about. It's demanding, it's long hours, you got to be willing to put in the work, plain and simple.
Definitely not a 9-to-5 desk job.
Not even close. But for the right person, someone who loves working with their hands, who thrives in a dynamic, ever-changing environment. There's nothing like it. You feel that sense of purpose, you've got that camaraderie, and you get to create these incredible things.
I'm honestly blown away by all this. But gotta ask, what about the future? We live in a world where automation is changing everything. What does that mean for shipbuilding?
$1 million question. And a really good one to ponder as we take a quick break. And we're back, diving deeper into the world of shipwrights. Before the break, we were talking about how automation is changing the game, but also how those human skills, they're more important than ever. And you know what? RoleCatcher's data actually breaks down what it takes to thrive as a modern shipwright, what skills you really need.
Okay, so beyond a love for boats, what are we talking about? What should someone be working on if they're thinking about this career path?
Well, it probably won't surprise you, but mechanical knowledge is huge.
Yeah.
Like really huge.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher puts it at a whopping 92% importance. But this isn't just knowing how to use a wrench. It's understanding how things work on a deeper level. Engines, hydraulics, the whole shebang.
So if you're the kind of person who loves taking things apart, figuring out how they tick, you're off to a good start.
You got it. That natural curiosity, that problem-solving mindset, It's essential,
Mm.
but it's not all just, being handy. Remember we talked about the design
All
aspect.
right, right, the CAD software and all that. So math skills got to be up there too, right?
You know what? RoleCatcher puts them at 76% importance, and for good reason. You need a good grasp of geometry, especially when you're calculating those complex curves of a hull. It's all about stability.
Hmm.
And there's weight distribution, load calculations. It gets pretty in-depth.
So it's like this really cool mix, right? Hands-on skills, but also you got to use your brain.
Exactly. And speaking of a good mix, there's another skill set that often gets overlooked, but it's crucial. Building and construction knowledge in general. RoleCatcher found it's about 67% important.
Okay, that's interesting. So not just ships, but like understanding structures,
Yeah,
period.
got it. It's that foundational knowledge, about load-bearing, materials, how it all comes together to make something strong and safe. Remember that ship cradle we were talking about before? Something like that, you got to know what you're doing.
No kidding. Can't just wing it when you're building something that massive.
Yeah.
Huge responsibility. And speaking of responsibility, our source material did mention some of the potential downsides. What are we talking about there? What are some of the challenges?
Right. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Got to keep it real. It is demanding work, long hours. Sometimes the weather's not cooperating. Got to be prepared for that. And safety is paramount. You're working in an environment where if you're not careful, it can be dangerous.
Not exactly a climate-controlled office.
You can say that again. But for people who thrive on that hands-on work, who like a challenge, who aren't afraid to break a sweat, it can be incredibly rewarding. There's a real sense of accomplishment.
I bet. So we've talked about the skills, some of the challenges. What about the actual career trajectory? The path someone takes. We touched upon apprenticeships, but how long does it actually take to get good at this, to be considered like a real seasoned shipwright?
Well, that's where those RoleCatcher profiles are really interesting. They've got data on actual shipwrights, and it gives you a good sense of what each stage looks like, how long it takes to move up.
Okay, so let's break it down. Apprentice stage, what's that like? What are you doing day to day?
It's all about the fundamentals. You're like a sponge, soaking it all up from those experienced shipwrights, learning the ropes, literally. You're involved in every part, from sketches and templates to getting comfortable with all the tools, the old school ones, and the new tech, too.
So very hands-on, learning by doing.
Exactly. And it's not just the technical stuff either. It's developing that attention to detail, figuring out how to solve problems when they come up inevitably, and really understanding how important teamwork is, how to communicate effectively in a shipyard. That environment, it's its own thing.
Gotcha. Sounds like it's as much about building those soft skills as anything else, at least at that stage. But then what? What comes after the apprenticeship?
That's when you usually move into a junior shipwright position. More independence, more responsibility.
Less taking orders, more giving them.
Kinda. You'll be trusted with more complicated tasks, maybe even overseeing some apprentices on certain projects.
Okay, now that sounds like a good confidence boost. What kind of projects are we talking about here?
Depends on the shipyard, what they specialize in. But maybe you're building smaller vessels more on your own now, or taking the lead on a specific section of a larger build. You're putting everything you learned as an apprentice into practice, and you're also starting to develop that leadership potential.
I bet the feeling of accomplishment is incredible. When you see that finished product and you're like, I helped build that.
Oh, absolutely. And then, as you keep honing those skills, getting more and more experience, you can then move on up to the big leagues. You become a senior shipwright.
Senior shipwright, that's got a ring to it. What sets that role apart?
At this point, you're not just building, you're basically conducting the whole orchestra. You're running large-scale projects, managing teams of those junior shipwrights and apprentices, making sure everything's on track, on budget, meeting those deadlines. You might even be involved from the very beginning, the design phase, working with the naval architects and engineers.
Wow, so it's really next level stuff. It's not just about being good with your hands anymore. It's the big picture stuff. Leadership, management, really understanding every part of this whole world.
100%. You become a mentor, a leader. You're a guardian of this craft, making sure it stays alive, but also that it moves forward, embraces new ideas, new technology. It's a delicate balance.
It sounds like such an amazing opportunity for growth, though, as a person and in your career. It's really inspiring.
It really is. And for those people out there who are drawn to this kind of work, the artistry of it, the engineering, that sense of scale, it's a lifelong pursuit. It really gets under your skin.
I'm starting to see that. But let's be real, even with all the good stuff, there's got to be challenges specific to each stage, right? Like, What are some of the hurdles people should be prepared for?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like we said, every stage has its learning curve. As an apprentice, it's all about patience, putting in the work, and not being afraid to screw up sometimes.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Everyone. You're there to learn, to get better. It takes time, but dedication is key. And then as you move into that junior shipwright position, the challenges change. You're responsible for more. Maybe you're leading for the first time. That could be tough. It's finding your footing, earning the respect of your team, learning to manage not just yourself, but other people too.
Going from being the one learning the ropes to the one showing others how it's done?
Exactly. And then, of course, for those senior shipwrights, it's even more complex. Now you're looking at the whole project. You're dealing with budgets, making sure you're on time, that your team is safe on top of everything else. It's a high-pressure position. Strong leadership is a must. Communication is key. And sometimes you have to make those tough calls.
It's a career path that definitely keeps you growing, that's for sure.
You said it. But, that's also what makes it so rewarding. It's not for everyone, but for the right person. Someone who thrives in that environment. It's more than a job. It's, like we said, it's a real passion.
You're really selling me on this. But let's not forget, we're talking about building ships here. These aren't just sheds. They have to be able to withstand some of the harshest conditions out there. What about the actual work? Are there challenges specific to shipbuilding itself that people should be ready for?
Oh, for sure. I mean, building a ship, it's such a unique process, so detailed, so demanding. I think one of the biggest challenges is just the sheer scale of it all.
Yeah, it's not building a birdhouse.
Not at all. We're talking massive pieces of steel, pipes everywhere, electrical systems that are incredibly complex. It's like a giant puzzle, but way more complicated.
And you've got all the different materials to think about, too. I mean, they all have their own, quirks and things you got to know about, right?
Exactly. One day you might be working with, good old-fashioned wood, and the next it's high-strength steel, and then you've got your fancy composites like fiberglass, carbon fiber, and you need different skills for each one. You got to be versatile.
Sounds like you really do have to be a jack of all trades in this job.
That's a great way to put it. And then you can't forget about the precision required. I mean, ships, they have to be built to incredibly exact measurements. We're talking millimeters here. It's got to be perfect.
No room for that'll do in shipbuilding, huh?
Not if you want it to float. Precision, attention to detail, striving for excellence in everything you do. It's not just a suggestion. It's a necessity in this line of work.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, how much skill and just pure dedication goes into building these things.
It really is amazing. And on top of all of that, you got to stay up to date with all the technology. Shipbuilding is constantly evolving, always new stuff coming out.
Right, we talked about that earlier, how technology is changing everything.
It really is. We're talking fancy design software, automated systems, even 3D printing now. It's incredible how much it's changed. And it's not stopping anytime soon.
So no resting on your laurels, you gotta always be learning.
Exactly. It's a field that really rewards people who are curious, who are always looking to learn something new. And that actually brings us to another incredibly important aspect: problem solving.
Right, because with something as complex as building a ship, I imagine things don't always go to plan.
You got that right. Things go wrong, materials are delayed, designs need to change on the fly, and that's where that problem-solving ability comes in. You have to be able to think on your feet, figure out what's going wrong, and come up with a solution, often pretty quickly.
So you can't be afraid to get creative.
Exactly. A good shipwright, they're like master puzzle solvers. They can look at a problem from all angles and figure out how to fix it, often in a way no one's thought of before.
Definitely keeps you on your toes. Okay, so we've talked about the skills, the challenges, the fact that you gotta love problem solving, but what about the people, What kind of personality really thrives in this kind of work?
That is the million-dollar question. I think there are a few things that really stand out. First and foremost, you have to be passionate about it. Truly passionate. This can't just be a job. It's got to be something you really connect with.
Something you eat, sleep, and breathe.
Exactly. That fire in your belly, that desire to build something amazing, something that will last. It's what gets you through the tough days. And with that passion comes dedication.
Right, because this isn't easy work.
No, sir. It takes time, patience, an incredible eye for detail. And you can't be afraid to put in the hours because it's demanding, both physically and mentally.
Then you got to be able to work with others too, right? It's not a solo mission.
Definitely not. Teamwork is absolutely essential in this field. You've got to be able to collaborate with everyone, other shipwrights, engineers, designers, the whole crew.
No room for big egos then, huh?
Yeah, not a chance. It's all about communication, being able to listen to others, respect their expertise, and work together towards a common goal. And of course, a strong work ethic is crucial. Like we said, shipbuilding, it's demanding, long hours, you're often working in challenging conditions. You got to be willing to put in the work, plain and simple.
Not your average 9 to 5.
Not even close. But for the right person, someone who loves working with their hands, who thrives in an environment that's always changing, always challenging, there's nothing quite like it. That sense of purpose, that camaraderie with your team, and knowing you're building something truly amazing, it's pretty special.
You're definitely making me want to apply. Okay, we've covered so much ground here, but before we wrap up, gotta ask, what about the future? We live in a world where automation is changing everything. What does that mean for shipbuilding? What's on the horizon?
The million-dollar question, and one that's on a lot of people's minds, for sure. Why don't we take a quick break and dive into that fascinating topic when we come back?
And we're back, listeners, ready to finish our deep dive into the world of shipwrights. Before the break, we were talking about the future, and I think there's this big question looming. Can you even be a shipwright in an age of automation?
Right. It's something everyone's thinking about. I mean, on the one hand, you've got robots, automation, changing how things are made. But what we're seeing in shipbuilding, it's not that simple.
Okay, so it's not just robots taking over. Tell me more.
Think about it. You can automate some welding, maybe even some cutting. But that human eye, that ability to judge if something's really fitting right, that problem solving when things inevitably go sideways, that's where shipwrights are irreplaceable.
So it's that blend we keep talking about. Technology, it's a tool, not a replacement for human skill.
Exactly. And if anything, it's making shipwrights even more important. Think about composite materials. They're being used more and more in shipbuilding these days.
Oh, right, like fiberglass, carbon fiber, that kind of thing?
Exactly. Lighter, stronger, but you need a whole other skill set to work with them. It's not just wood and nails anymore. A modern shipwright might need to know about resin ratios, how to use a vacuum bag, even things like curing times. It gets very specific.
Wow, so it's like chemistry and carpentry and high-tech engineering all rolled into one. This is blowing my mind. This is all shipwright.
And that's just one example. Remember how we talked about sustainable shipping? Who's going to build those eco-friendly ships? Who's going to install those fancy new engines?
You've got a point. This isn't a dying field. It's one that's got to be on the cutting edge of these huge changes happening in how we use the oceans.
Exactly. If you like a challenge, if you're excited by that mix of tradition and totally new tech, well, the future's looking pretty bright for shipwrights.
One thing that's really stuck with me through all this is how much we keep coming back to sustainability.
It's everywhere you look these days, and the shipbuilding industry is no different.
Yeah.
They're having to face some hard truths about their impact on the planet.
Right. Everything from the materials they use to the emissions they create. It's a big deal.
Absolutely. And that's where shipwrights become even more essential in a way no one expected.
So it's not just about building the ship, but building it responsibly.
Exactly. Shipwrights are right there on the front lines of making those changes happen. They're the ones using eco-friendly materials, figuring out how to build things in a way that's better for the planet.
So they have a real tangible impact.
They really do. Imagine that you're part of making shipping greener. Your skills are literally helping the planet.
That's amazing. It's like they're not just building ships, they're building a better future for everybody.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part is, this whole sustainability thing, it's opening up all kinds of new opportunities in the field.
Oh, that's fantastic. Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, there's a huge need for shipwrights who can build and fix ships that run on those alternative fuels, like hydrogen, electricity.
So like zero emission ships.
Exactly. And then there's this whole area called eco-design, where it's about how to build the ship from the ground up so it has the smallest impact possible.
So it's not just what it's made of, but how it moves through the water.
You got it. And guess who's essential in making those designs a reality? Shipwrights. They take those blueprints, use their skills, and boom, eco-friendly ship.
That's so cool. They're shaping the entire future of the industry.
Yeah.
It's not just a job. It's, I don't know, it feels important.
It really is. And it's only going to get more important as time goes on. It's exciting to be a part of this change.
For anyone out there who's passionate about the environment, about making a difference, this is like a whole other reason to consider being a shipwright. It's not just about boats anymore.
Exactly. It's about using your skills to build a better world.
I love that. Okay, we've talked about so much. The challenges, the rewards, what the future holds, even how it ties into something as big as the environment. But before we go, Gotta give a shout out to RoleCatcher. They've been amazing throughout this whole deep dive.
Their resources are incredible. There's no way around it.
If anyone's out there feeling a little overwhelmed, like, where do I even start? RoleCatcher is it. They lay out the entire path, step by step.
They make it so easy to understand. They've got tips, advice, and those AI tools we talked about. Those are game changers, honestly.
Right. Resumes, interview practice, finding jobs, they've got you covered.
They take all the guesswork out of it. You can focus on what you love, building those skills, and they'll help you make it happen.
And in a field like this, where it's so specialized, that's invaluable.
Absolutely. It's like having a career coach right in your pocket, available anytime you need it. And they're always updating their stuff, so you know you're getting the latest info.
I love that. Okay, well, we've reached the end of our deep dive. Huge thanks to RoleCatcher for all the insights. It's been amazing learning all about this.
My pleasure. Who knew shipbuilding could be so fascinating, right?
Right. And all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you've gained a new appreciation for shipwrights and the incredible work they do.
And hopefully we've inspired some of you out there to consider this path for yourselves. It's an amazing field, full of opportunities, and it's only getting more exciting.
Couldn't agree more. All right, everyone, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep building.